Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Marsden Point News Radio. This is the first video recording I have ever made. So, I'm not quite prepared, but never mind. Were we all when we first jumped into the swimming pool or rode our first bike? Not quite. Anyway, I will get on with this. Now, Marsden Point News Radio has been reporting on our fuel situation in New Zealand for quite some time now. We've actually got records going back to last April, May, June, July, right through. The reason why we started doing this was we somehow managed to switch off and tear down our only oil refinery in New Zealand. Yeah, I know, that's completely insane. We are now at the mercy of fuel supplies coming from overseas, mainly Singapore and Korea. The odd one from China, which didn't arrive the last time. The odd vessel, Japanese, and there's a few other odd countries that are on the list that you wouldn't believe. Goodness, the list is, you can't make this stuff up. Anyway, so we are at the mercy of what's called white ticket and black ticket options, a bit like a stock market, where orders are placed. If they arrive, and if the quality is actually up to the standards of fuel that we had with our own refinery here in the North Island at Marsden Point up at Whangarei. Now, much debate went down as to the closure of Marsden Point. There is an audio file that I put out quite a while ago, which does go into that really, really deeply. I studied this for a long time. I released an audio file. It will give the whole explanatory circumstances surrounding what happened, when it was built, why it was upgraded, and for making no sense why they shut it, sold it off. They got transferred to another private company. It was government owned and government funded at the beginning. You know, the people who built this and paid for it, you know, great engineers, great developers, fantastic people built this. Blood, sweat and tears went into this thing. And somehow the government through, I can't quite remember the name, but I must get that for my notes the next time when I pick this up again, actually transferred into the hands of private corporations. Yeah, completely disgusting, I know. That's what happened. Then it was run by a conglomerate of oil companies. Yeah. They were the main shareholders, along with, you know, quite a few others. There were actually 10 main shareholders that operated what was called Refining New Zealand. Unfortunately, last year, on April the 1st, strange date, it's actually the start of the financial year. It's not just April Fool's Day. In New Zealand, the 1st of April is the start of the financial year. So, the name was changed to Refining New Zealand. They lost a lot of the majority of the shareholders, sold out, and they began dismantling the plant. And the announcement was made on Radio New Zealand that we would now be at the mercy, I'm not joking, we are at the mercy of fuel being delivered to us on time. To maintain the working parts of this country. Everything, mate. And then there was a lot spoken about, well, what about our storage, you know, our strategic petroleum reserves? We have none. There is no strategic petroleum reserves. It's a joke. Okay, what happened was, under the IEA, International Energy Agreement, New Zealand was supposed to keep 90 days of storage. Not here. We haven't got the capacity. It was actually kept overseas, which it wasn't. It was actually sold off. It was actually like paper gold. You know, it doesn't exist. Unless you've got the AU in your back pocket, forget it, mate. If it's on paper, don't bother about it. You want physical. Well, after many months of record keeping and database work and really detailed record keeping, we have gathered in quite a bit of data that would actually bring this whole thing down. It's a shambles, mate. It's an absolute shocker. There is no storage in New Zealand. I have all the government figures and all the government data that I could obtain, not through secret sources and not through whistleblowers. This is not one of those channels. I got them from the government themselves, through the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment. They're all there. You just got to you just got to know where to look for them. Just that I'm darn well good at doing stuff like that, so not a problem for me. Anyhow, getting back to it, storage. The consumption, my speech impediment here. The consumption figures year on year show exactly what was taken from the storage around New Zealand. And I have the storage facilities for every 11, it was 11 at a time, I think we're down to 10 now, 10 facilities around New Zealand. And what is actually brought in there is actually what we use each year. What's left over? Nothing. Where's the storage? It doesn't exist. The Minister of Energy, Megan Woods, was asked about this. What about the storage facilities, Megan Woods? She says, we can't afford the $600 million to build the facilities. Okay, so where's the storage? Basically, it's what's left in the tanks around the country. And looking at what we consume the whole lot, And already, now getting back to today, and yesterday and the day before, we have already had what we call just-in-time fuel deliveries. Okay, what do you mean by that, Dave? Well, what happens? For instance, just hang on, I'll just put this on pause for a second. Right, sorry, get back to it. Now, what happened the other day? We had a vessel called the Ocean Nisa. Just came into Littleton Harbour there. Now, Littleton, if you don't know, if you're watching this from overseas, Littleton is in Christchurch. That's halfway down and halfway up the South Island. Yeah, we have two islands, north and south, just in case. I'm just saying. All right, this is not America. Is Alaska America? Yes, it is. Even though it's north of Canada, it's still called America. We're the same. We've got a North Island, South Island. Anyway, Littleton Harbour. It came in there the other day, straight out of the blue. Just, hello there, what are you doing here? Straight into Littleton. Now, okay, we see this now and again. All the other ports around the country had already been topped up, as we say. So that they already had a good discharge of fuel. Littleton, unfortunately, seemed to be missed out in that delivery for that period at the start of the month, and there weren't many vessels came in there. So in comes the Ocean Nisa, drops off fuel. Now, by logic, if you're going to travel further down the South Island, and your next port would be Dunedin, okay, and then further round at the very, very, very end of the South Island, there's a port called Bluff, okay, that's Invercargill. So what does the Ocean Nisa do? She goes from Littleton straight round to Bluff, misses out Dunedin, and then comes back up to Dunedin, and now she's left today on the 28th to go to Australia. Why? The reason being, Bluff had only one port call this month. That was another just-in-time fuel delivery. It needed to go to Bluff first before it went back up to Dunedin, because Dunedin still had a little bit more fuel left. I mean, this is easily seen. If you've been doing this as long as I have, you can clearly see what's going on. And you think that's bad? You should see what's going on in Northport, which is the old Marsden Point facility. The refinery is still there, but it's a skeleton of what it was before. I mean, they have been taking this thing apart like you wouldn't believe. And I won't tell you where the parts have gone, but you can only guess. So, without that little snigger on my face. Now, Northport does actually serve as a dual facility. Okay, no, at the start of the month there was 7 tankers up there. Okay, in Northport. These tankers only come in there once. They don't travel from there around the rest of the North Island or go further to the South Island. These tankers make one port calls. The reason being, so as I say, dual facility is dual storage. There is a storage facility there that I would say, call it domestic use, and there's a pipeline that goes down to Auckland. Okay, it's quite a famous pipeline. The fuel is pumped down there for Auckland consumption. Okay, there is another private storage facility there owned by Channel Infrastructure. Now, I've been told by the Minister and through Channel Infrastructure as well, the capacity of those storage facilities are 180 million litres for domestic purpose and 100 million litres for private purpose. I'm not actually quite sure if these figures are correct. I can only take their word for it. But with the number of vessels that come in there, I would say it's considerably more. Now, here is another dual function that it serves. There is a bunker vessel called the Awanuia, who regularly, sometimes even, it's on a 24-hour journey. It's 8 hours from Auckland to Marsden Point by that vessel's time. It goes there, it picks up fuel, it takes the fuel back down to Auckland, and it bunkers it to cargo vessels, passenger vessels, and container vessels. I've recorded all its movements for a long time now. I look at it through my mapping software that I look at, and yes, it's always moored right up against them. And it is a bunkering vessel. It's run by Bunkers NZ. Okay? It's a bunker vessel. So that's where the private storage comes in. So Channel Infrastructure does bring in a lot of fuels, and it's possibly all diesel. I don't think there's a lot of heavy bunker fuel gets used these days, but I can only just guess. So that happens every day. I mean, I've got recordings from today. I got two yesterday when it happened twice. So that's what happens to most of the fuel. So it's a dual capacity harbour there, and it's not all for us. Other places to look out like that is New Plymouth, which is called Port Taranaki. And that's on the west coast of the North Island. And it's on that big hump on the side if you look at it on the map. So Taranaki. So that's another place where we have a dual facility where there's a lot of vessels come in there. And they're actually exporting, they take away methanol. Okay, there's a large plant up there. I think it's Methanex that run it. So they produce methanol there, and that port sometimes is really, really busy. We've actually had like a queue of 5 ex-petroleum vessels sitting out at harbour. Yeah, these have been petroleum vessels that have been in and around the country. Now what they do is they hang around Port Nelson, which is the top port in the South Island there, or they'll hang around at anchor outside New Plymouth. They'll wait for a good few days, then they'll go in and load up, and they take away methanol. It's normally to Singapore and China. So not everything that comes into New Zealand by ship is for us, for fuel purposes. It's for other reasons. So just letting you know. Alright, so that's been a bit of an introduction for you. So this is Marsden Point News Radio. There is the Marsden Point News Radio Podbeam. Also the Marsden Point YouTube channel, which I'm sure you've already seen this because it's on here just now, but never mind. Hey, look, this is the first time I've done this, so I'm still trying to just do this on the fly. I don't have a script. I prefer not to script anything. You know, it wouldn't be me. You know, I've never done that, so I'm not going to start doing it now. But we'll just quickly just have a look at the what went on around the countries, the North and South Island today. As I say, the Awanuia departed from Auckland and is now heading to Marsden Point. Surprise, surprise. Again. But what's happening around the rest of the country? This is going to come back to this question, this first tanker here, okay? What's happening around the rest of the country? There's a vessel called the Ayami. Now, she was at Marsden Point for 4 days. Now, normally it takes a ship like 3 days before it empties its tanks and then it hops off again, right? And I can always tell their destination because I do have them all logged. No, I ain't stupid. Well, anyway, it, for some reason, has gone down to Taronga, which is around the northeast coast of the North Island. And it's been sitting out there for about 4 or 5 days at anchor. You got your question why? I thought you were empty. Never mind. It's not. I can only guess this one. You can't make this stuff up. Okay. Now here's the other vessel, the Grand Winner 5, who's been on, a miraculous journey. It's been quite a few ports. It finally ended up at New Plymouth again, and then was sitting in. It's been there for days and days. We thought everybody had jumped ship or died of starvation, or that the mutiny on board. It finally moved today, and it is actually heading to Wellington today, and it might be in there this evening. Let's hope. You must be getting really short in Wellington, I tell you, because the time span is getting too long, mate. And there's 3 ports in Wellington. There's Point Howard for fuel and domestic diesel. There's also Shelley Bay, which takes in the Jet A1 fuel for the airport. And there's another port in there right up again, right in the harbour, called Thorndon. Now that's where your diesel goes, because for the ferries that go between the North and South Island. There are like 4 ferries that constantly run 24 hours a day, and that is the only place they can fuel up, and that's where the depots are, and that's where your passenger terminals are, and your rail, and your freight. So we'll find out later tonight if the Grand Winner gets in there and where she stops. Carl and I do have a good bet that she will stop at Thorndon for diesel. It's got to be diesel, mate. It's been a long time. I think we've got one record. Goes back early this month. The last time diesel was dropped off in there. Now this is also for our trains as well, for the freight trains that run throughout the North Island. They've got to go from Wellington to Palmerston North. They've got to get to Auckland. They've got to get all around the place. So let's see what happens there. Okay, the last one, is the Oceanisa. Now I just mentioned she departed from Dunedin and is now off to Melbourne. Normally I would, it'd be a normal day for me to do this on Podbean Radio when I do it live. I would have like 6, 7 or 8 pages, with at least, 8 vessels at any given time to report on. And petroleum, not LPG or molasses or tallow or anything else or any other type of fuel. We particularly look at, petroleum carriers. And right, look at this. There are no vessels in the South Island today. And there is no discharges of fuel. Other than we hope the Grand Winner 5 tonight at Wellington. And there's nothing at Marsden Point. Timaru, the Ayami's there. Napier, there's nothing there. Wellington, well, hopefully the Grand. Nelson, there's nothing. Timaru, nothing. Littleton, nothing. Dunedin, nothing. And Bluff. Well, we just had Bluff. She just left. No, that was Dunedin, she just left. Anyway, it's gone. So the next tankers that we're expecting here will be in the first day or so of February, and then round about the 14th and 17th and 20 odd and we watch our port data every single day to find out what's coming in. And I tell you what, it's looking like it was the end of December. It was looking like that as well. End of December, early January. I did actually do a podbeam on that, and I did actually listen to it today, where I had basically raised the same concerns. So it's not unusual. It's just that I've got to compare December's data to January's data, and then compare the number of vessels that came in, whereabouts they went, and I do have that in a database that I built myself. I'm damn well good at it. So I can bring up the ports around each day, the North and South Island. I can find out who went there, what dates they went there, and I can see what deliveries were done, and that's a good comparison. Only thing I can't tell you is the quantity. I don't know that, and I don't know the quality as well. That's the other problem. We're not guaranteed the same quality as we had before coming from Marsden Point. So that's what Marsden Point News Radio.co.nz does. We have 3 Telegram channels that we keep. I do the main one, Marsden Point News Radio. It's called at Marsden Point, one word. There is a discussion group. There's quite a few of us in there. We also have what's called the engine room for, there's 3 of us in there. And and there's another one, but I won't tell you what it is. So, well, look, this has actually been pretty easy for the first time. So I shall do this again and keep you updated. Anything comes to mind that needs to be told, I will let you know. Okay, so you take care, guys. I will try and write up some text sort of thing that goes in here, but I'll probably make a mess of it. This is actually, it's only the 3rd time I've used this software. I found out where the record button is and where my mic thing is. And I'm thinking to myself, yep, okay, I can do this. So anyway, I'm going to say good day to you all. So this is Marsden Point News Radio on Saturday the 28th of January 2023. Going to sign off. This is your man Dave, and I'll see you all again. Okay, cheers guys. Bye.